This video will look at how we use the checkbox to create a timeout. The attendance spreadsheet that I've been using works off an ID number, which could be typed in or it could be scanned from a barcode. Once the number has been entered, it does a VLOOKUP to check for a name list and brings a name through. So that's one function that I quite like using the system to be able to bring up names. On the basis of the ID being put in, we're also generating a time stamp. So you can see the time here is 8:33 p.m. that's gone in, the date 24th of January. Now, this 24th of January is being generated as a now function. The now function in Excel will give a time and date stamp that is put into a cell, but it is updated every time a new entry is made. If I just put a 1 in here, you'll see that this will roll over as it's showing that it has created a new entry. Let me just change that one because we missed the change of time there. So let me put it in a 1 again, and you'll see that's now showing as an 8:34. This one has stayed though as the 8:33. So what's happening is these are hanging on to the time that was put in, even though the time would look like it's being updated in the standard now function. So in this cell we can see we've got the now function happening there, but it's been embedded within part of my if statement so that it will only let that now function operate on that cell when a trigger happens. Now my trigger in this case is B3. B3 over here, or it could be A3. If these are empty, then we're going to go away and let it try and do the now function. If there is something in there, then we don't want it to go and change anything, so we want it to leave that cell alone. So my trigger is the fact that something has been put in there. So if it's not empty, then we're going to let a little iteration happen. The second part of that is to see whether this here is empty, where my cell itself that I'm putting things into is empty. So if D3, this cell here, is empty, then we'll put a value in it. But if it is already full, then we won't let the now function happen. Okay, so we've triggered to here, and then we've said if this one is empty, then we'll do a now. But if it's full, then we're just going to leave it alone. We're not going to let it touch it. We're not going to let it do anything. And if it is empty, we'll keep it as empty. So that's why we're writing an empty over here. So that's that standard one. Now, that's the way all the attendance sheets that I've been posting on YouTube are working. The next function, though, is to get the timeout. Now, we can see when somebody goes out just by typing their number in again, and we see, oh, they've gone red. That's because it's the second time, and they were from 8:33 to 8:36. That's one way of registering when somebody leaves, but another way is to actually pick up that they've left by ticking this box. So I'm just ticking a box here, and it's giving me a timeout function, and I can do the same with this person here, so I can see when they're leaving. In exactly the same way, I've got my now function happening here. I'm checking to see first of all whether there is actually a value over there. So if I tick this one here, nothing happens here because it knows there wasn't an original time to compare it against, so it doesn't do anything. It's only letting me do something if there is a value over here. So we have the same now function. The only difference we're really seeing is it's checking E3, this value here, to see whether a value is true or not. Okay, so this checkbox is actually doing something. Let me just click in behind here, and if I can just get over far enough, I might be able to, yes, you can see it says false there. And the same if I can click in the back here, you see it says true. So there is a value that's being hidden in the back here. It's actually being hidden because I've changed the font color of these cells so that we can't actually see it. So let me just make that black. There we go. Now you can see there was actually a true value being put in behind, but it was invisible because I made it the same color as my background. I could have made it white and you wouldn't have seen it that way as well. So my tick box here, checkbox, is putting a value into here of true that this formula is now finding. If that's true, and it's then able to go away and get it. So let's create one of those. So we're sitting over here. I've got a time in. There's my function for the time in. So if I put a value in B3, I'm just going to put, well, we'll put the number 12 in. It's not going to make any difference. It's gone and triggered this timestamp. So there's a value there. We'll put in a timestamp, and this one here has triggered a timestamp as well. And the reason it's triggered it is because I've got an invisible value of true written in there. Let me go back and let the color show up on that one, and we'll just delete that. So there's nothing sitting in there. If I put the value of false in there, nothing happens here. If I put the value of true in there, my value comes up. I've got my timestamp happening. Now you see over here, this is just a regular now statements happening. So we can see that one rolling over all the time. So let's go back and into this one, and we'll just put nothing in there for the moment. So there's nothing there, nothing's going to happen. I put the value 23 in there, nothing's going to happen. It's only when I put the value true in there that this one triggers. So I've got to get the value true to come into this cell here, and that's what we're going to do with the developer tab. So up here on the developer tab, I'm going to insert a checkbox, and I'm going to grab it, and I've got a little square. It's going to let me draw it out, and there it is there. I'm going to draw it out a little bit too long to begin with because there's some values in here that I need to see. Let me move it out of the way so you can see what it said there. It's called a checkbox 4 because I've been doing a bit of work. So that's fine, except I don't want it to say anything. So I'm going to double click in there and delete the text. So I don't want any text in there. And I'm going to grab the edge of this box and move it back. And then I want to grab the whole thing and move it up so it's sitting nicely in my cell that I can tick. Okay, there it is there. Now I'll get rid of this true value in a minute. For the moment though, here's my tick box, which I can tick on and off. I need it to do something, so I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to format the control. So here, my format control, it tells me what I'm going to do if I'm checked or unchecked. Well, I want it to link to a cell. Now, I could type it in, but the easiest way is actually to click on the cell reference here and then click on the cell I want it to work with. And you'll see it's got $E3, and that means it's an absolute reference. It's always pointing to that one cell. Even if I move the box around, it would be pointing back to that one cell. So that's fine. We'll close that, and OK. So now when I tick this again, let me just untick design mode, come off here. If I tick this again, it's changed it to false. This has disappeared. I tick it and change it to true, and my values come back. So the only other thing I want to do now is make sure that I can't see that false and true because it would get confusing. So I can either color my background or I can just change my font to white there so I don't see it anymore. So that's basically what we've got. We've got a trigger over here. Remember, if I delete that, it gets rid of all of them. Put my value back in there, and they both come back. They've both been triggered, but I don't want it to work like that. I want this one first, and then when the person leaves, I can tick on this box and pick up my timeout. Okay, so I hope that helps you with being able to set up a tick box to be able to register when somebody has left. We're using the developer tab, we're using insert, and we're using a form control up here, a checkbox form control. Once we've got the form control in there, we're right clicking on it, we're going to the form control menu, and we come in here and we're working with the cell link to make sure it points to the correct place. That's the place it's going to write the true or false value.